Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show with another exciting guest. Today we're going to talk about changing careers, being burnt out. This is definitely a beast mindset because now you're taking something that you thought you loved at one time and it taking up too much of your time. It's affecting your family. And somebody in your family says, something has to change. And now you have to go into a deep thought pattern because you've been conditioned that this is what you're supposed to do from the get-go.
Yeah. But
now you got to pivot. So today on the show, we have Dr. Donna Marie Cozine. That's Dutch, a matter of fact. If you guys don't understand that last name, it's Dutch. And she's going to tell us how she pivoted her career to do something different in her life, but also what she's doing impacting women as well. But before we get into that story, Donna, welcome to the show and tell the viewers a little bit about who you are first.
Thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful opportunity to talk about the beast mindset and how as women we need to, show our inner beast mindset as well. My name is Donna Marie. My friends call me DMC, so feel free to call me DMC. I am a leader, a speaker, an author, a coach. Most importantly, I'm a wife and a mom, a sister and a daughter. And I was at a crossroads in my life where I realized that the people who deserved the best of me were only getting the rest of me, and things had to change. So that's what I'm here to talk with you about today. And I'm really, really thankful for the opportunity to do so.
When you said that you was at a crossroad,
yeah,
go back. What was corporate America like for you? What were you doing that took up so much of your time away from your family?
Great question. I was actually the CEO and founder of a charter school here in Rochester, New York. At the time of me founding the school, Rochester had the single worst school district in the state and probably the second worst in the country. So I was providing a school. It's called Renaissance Academy Charter School of the Arts, which is still around today, which is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Creating a school that gave options to families to send their school to a school that really cared about them, embraced the arts, and really wanted what was best for them. And for me, it wasn't just a job. I sent my own child there. My daughter was there from 4 years old until she graduated in the 6th grade. And somewhere along the lines, I lost my way. And my husband, I was working all the time. My face was in the computer. I would come home. My son, who was 2, would be playing and I would not be interacting. And finally, my husband said to me, we didn't sign up for this. And Andre, I was so ignorant to what was happening around me. I said, didn't sign up for what? A credit card? And he said, no, this life. We didn't sign up for this life. And I was like, whoa, pause. What is he saying to me right now? Right. I had worked hard to have a family, like many women who are listening to the show. I, got married a little bit later. I had infertility issues. I went through a lot to have my babies and an amazing husband. And I realized that was my priority. So I said, you know what? I've helped other women before. What do I need to do to change for myself? Mm-hmm. About 3 weeks later, my husband's like, babe, you're doing a great job. You're present for the kids, but you're getting in bed with your computer and then you're not present for me. So I made some more changes. And then we realized that when my daughter was leaving the school, that we made a family decision that I too was going to leave. So I transitioned into becoming an executive coach. And I did that after I published my first book and then my second book about school leadership. And while I transitioned, what I found that I really was longing to do was help women. Because women in leadership, whether you're in a district or school leadership or a company, right? There are less of us in those seats. And honestly, we can't have conversations with our male colleagues that we can and should be able to have with our female or women who've been there, right? Like to have conversations about what do you do when you come home and you have no energy for anything. You don't want to make dinner. You don't want to, whatever those things are. So I started coaching lots of leaders, and then I started honing in on coaching female leaders. And I published my third book, which is called Break Up with Burnout for Female Educational Leaders. And then I went a little broader and I published my fourth book, which is called Winning at Work and Crushing It at Home. And it's really about how women, we have these two full-time jobs, right? Even when we have the most amazing and supportive partners, the emotional lift of our families are solely on our shoulders. You know, our children want us to do the homework. Our children want to cuddle with us when they're not feeling well, you know? So I shifted, and now I actually do keynotes and support leaders across the country. And I realized that writing a book changed everything for me in terms of my entrepreneurial spirit, or my beast mindset, if you will, of being able to go out there and create space for myself. You know, the entrepreneurial world is really a beautiful place for women because we can make our schedule around our life's priorities. So now I help women write books to grow their businesses. I've been doing it since November, and I already have 21 authors who are in the process. Many are already published, but many are in the process of finishing up. I think I have 5 books launching in October alone. So listen, Andre, I've been blessed and highly favored, to be honest. And
let's go back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit, because I like the fact that you started out in the school district. My daughter also attended a charter school system here in Indianapolis, in the Carmel area, and it was a game changer. So my hat's off to you. I wish people like you would bring more attention to the difference with regular school versus the benefits of having a charter school for your children to go to. But let's move forward a little bit with this. How difficult was it for you to make this change? I mean, your husband saw it. You just ain't giving it up like this because you got too much invested already in there. So what was the first thing that you did that was the most difficult and the most profound thing that your husband saw?
So the first thing that was the most profound was I stopped bringing my computer. I stopped opening my computer at home. I was the type of woman who I would leave first thing in the morning. I would go to work. I would come home, and then my computer would be open, and I would start working at night. Putting really hard boundaries around my time at home, and also demonstrating that to my team. So not sending them emails in the middle of the night, or not sending them requests or texts when it was really should be family time. So that was the first boundary that I established, which was really helpful. And then I think the second one was making time for my marriage and making time for my husband. So even though I was doing great with the kids and, you know, they're for dinner and playing and bath and bedtime, when it was time for us to sit down and, you know, have time to talk or do whatever, I was still exhausted. So it was really trying to get as much work as I could get done during the day by focusing on what are real priorities, what my priorities were, not what everyone else thought my priorities were, and establishing those priorities and my work practices so that if I did have to do something at home, my husband would be like, "Oh, I got this, babe. Yeah, let me take the kids to the park. How much time do you need?" As opposed to all the time I was working at home and I just wasn't present. So I think it was the big piece was just choosing to be present in my life. And a lot of people talk about work-life balance, and I don't believe in work-life balance.
You call it work-life harmony.
I do, because if you think of balance, right, that means your home and your work should be equal. And I don't believe that to be true. I think that, you know, we were put on this earth to have amazing lives. And for those of us who are lucky enough to have family in our life, whether it's our parents, our sisters, our own children, that should be more important in my opinion, right? But as women, and as we climb the corporate ladder, as we get higher and higher in our organizations, it's actually frowned upon, right? It's held against us that, well, how is she going to react if her kid gets sick? Well, you know, the same way anyone would react. I'll find somebody to pick them up, or I'll go, or my husband will go, or my parents will go. But I think that there are implicit biases against women in leadership. And my hope is to help women realize that we don't have to internalize those implicit biases. We can crash right through them and let people know, you know, I'm a leader, but I'm also a person. And my personal life is as important, if not more important, than my life as leader of this organization. And it was hard for me in the beginning. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I missed Halloween. My kids went trick-or-treating without me because a parent was screaming at me. You know, it's easy to say, hard to do.
So my question here is, I get what you're saying about these things that women have, but what about the woman that doesn't have the setup? And what I mean by the setup is, if she's a female, she's in corporate America, she's climbing corporate America, and she has a husband and she has the kids at home, that may be a little bit easier to navigate and to do these things. But what about the female that is in the house by herself, raising the kids and so forth? How was this able to benefit her? Because the realistic, and this is a two-part question. Not only that, let's talk realistic. Let's talk about what we're dealing with here in this country. Affordable housing, affordable wages. The theory is proven because you've done it, but we also got to realize, I'm pretty sure you took that in consideration, there are also variables to who can really succeed to do this and do this effectively. What's your take on that?
I think that's a really wonderful question, because we all have our own lived experiences, and mine is different from some women. I will say that what I focus on are systems and processes. So when you're at work, you can be at work and being really highly effective and being able to get more done in less time, so that when you do transition to home, you're able to really focus on that. But I think the other part that's really important is that as women, developing support systems. So, maybe you are a single parent, or, maybe you have these other things going on. But if as women, we focused on lifting each other and helping each other and being part of the solution and having this sisterhood, I call it the sister leader movement, this sisterhood where we're present for each other and we're helping each other, that really does make a difference. But when I'm working with my executive coaching clients, we focus on those type of systems. Like, what can we do to make this more efficient? How can we have conversations with our team to make sure that they understand it and they're on board? And then that brings me to the part of the book writing, because what I'm helping women do with book writing is really building a platform where they become an authority around a topic, and then they can monetize that experience. They can have keynotes. They can create coaching opportunities. They can go and do professional development in corporations or things like that. It can go from a side gig. Mine started as a side gig, and now it's what I do full time, which gives us as women more latitude around not being tied to that 9 to 5, which is what causes a lot of us stress, to be honest. We're missing our kids' basketball games or baseball games or dance recitals because we're bogged down in that 9 to 5 life.
I'm going to ask a question here.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Yolanda M. Smith, my co-host, did the same thing, coming from corporate Eli Lilly's, and started writing her book and stuff during the COVID and taking off. So I get it. She was able to pivot. What about the woman who doesn't inspire to write a book, but still wants to benefit off of the life? I'm not going to use balance, life, harmony, and career.
Yeah. So I would tell them that, and if they're listening and we can put in the liner notes, they can email me. I'll send them a free digital copy of this book. This is my most recent Amazon bestseller book, and it talks about how to have that the 3 problems as women that we face when we're in this grind is we are exhausted all the time, and we have too much work, not enough time in which to do it. And we don't feel appreciated, if I'm being honest. And this book makes
appreciated by who?
Anybody.
The workforce, the house, by
anybody.
Okay.
We don't feel appreciated by anybody because we're so overwhelmed. But this book does a nice job of breaking it down into those 3 sections, right? So taking care of yourself, how to focus on building your team and using your team, and then focusing on work practices that make you more effective. So anybody who listens to this show, I don't know how Andre is going to put it in the notes, but I'm happy to give you a free digital copy of this book. And You can get on my list. I send out emails all the time about work-life harmony. I have a Facebook group, a free Facebook group. It's possible. The first thing you have to do is know that you need to make a change. And somebody said something to me, Andre, and it really stuck, which is when you open your computer in the morning, your inbox is filled with everyone else's priorities for you. And if you start going through your inbox and addressing all those things, you're never going to get to what your priorities are. And as the leader, you need to focus on those few things that are going to move the organization forward. And that's really a big piece of that is what are your priorities? What is your mission as a leader? What do you wake up every morning knowing that you wanted to accomplish?
Okay, this sounds not just as a course for women. It's almost sort of the same philosophy that I use every single day. So this can easily be transferred into work. I'm not going to use balance, harmony for men as well. I mean, so let me go back to my other question here. Since you started this program, let's deal with the women. Let's start with the first question. Let's deal with the women who don't want to write a book, but just want to basically get their life back to harmony. What are some of the things that handicap that particular niche of women from not being able to navigate?
Love it. And it really boils down to three things: priorities, boundaries, and four things: taking care of yourself, priorities, boundaries, taking care of yourself, and building your team and being able to delegate. Because what happens is sometimes we hold everything so close, we want to control the outcomes of everything, that we just keep adding on to our plate, and our plate becomes completely overflowing. We don't establish healthy boundaries with people. So when people will come to you and say, "Hey, Donna Marie, you have a minute?" I'm dropping everything to put out whatever fire they need me to put out, although that might not be a priority to me at that moment. And as women, when society tells us to be a certain way, right? Be a good girl, be agreeable, do certain things, be a certain way. So when we're not that way, in the beginning, it makes us a little uncomfortable. Like, I need to solve everybody's problems. I need to make everyone feel good. So for us, it's uncomfortable. But then society, instead of saying, "Oh, Donna Marie is putting up boundaries," it's Donna Marie is being a bitch, right? I mean, we see that a man in leadership can act away and they're like, "Oh, he's so confident. He's so assertive." A woman can act the same way and she's being a bitch. So it's really navigating all of that, being comfortable to say, "You know what? We need to have priorities and boundaries, and I can do it in a way that's very professional. And you know what? If they think I'm a bitch, so be it. It's part of the job." I was talking to a woman yesterday and I said to her, have you ever heard HBIC? I want to write that as my next book, the HBIC. And she's like, "No, I've never heard of that." And I was like, "Well, it's the head bitch in charge," right? So, sometimes we worry about what other people think about us, but what we should be worrying about is when we look at ourselves in the mirror in the morning, are we doing everything that day that we think is important for me, for the organization, for the people that I serve? Because that really is what it's all about.
I get that. But then I'm also realizing that when you're dealing with two categories here. So let's talk about this. Yep. You're dealing with working for corporate America.
Yep.
And you're talking about another category where you're dealing with being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
The difference to me with that particular asset is like we talked about with Yolanda. You have to follow the chain of directions. You're right. You can delegate things to people to do, or they supposed to do these things. But now you got to shift alignment when you become an entrepreneur and you run a company on your own. A lot of times you delegate, like you said, people to do certain tasks, but this is where it becomes a psychological warfare with this. You get people into your company are in companies based on a piece of paper or their qualifications, but it doesn't always resonate that these people can do these particular tasks, not in the way in which you think is, like you said, not consuming your time. So now what happens is you have to wind up being a master of someone else's craft, because even though it looks good on paper, they haven't even mastered those things. So how many times have you run into that particular situation with your course and dealing with women?
Yeah, I love that question. First of all, Andre, you're an excellent interviewer. I love your style.
Well, thank you.
And I love how you're coming up with these really wonderful questions. They're not softballs, which I love. First, I want to say something about entrepreneurialism. I have found it more difficult to have the entrepreneurial life than going to work for somebody else. When I was working for somebody else, I knew what was expected of me every day. But when you're an entrepreneur, what you get out of your business is a direct link to what you put into it. So if you're not, working your business like it's a business and you're doing it like it's a hobby, you're going to have hobby results and not business results.
Hold on, doctor. I want you to do me a favor for the listeners. And you need to hear this once again from a doctor. Repeat what you just said when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because a lot of people don't do exactly that. And it's funny because I hear both men and women, and I think this is part of the thing you can talk about too. When you're becoming an entrepreneur, even as a woman, because we're talking about women in general, you have to put in a lot of work in your craft.
Yep.
You have to put in a lot. How does that? So I want you to repeat that. You have to, put in that work. But a lot of people, and I think this may be a pressure point too, that you probably deal with the people that you're dealing with. It's not really that easy when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to start a company and raise a family, whether you're a single mom, whether you're happily married, because the efforts that put into being an entrepreneur is totally different than you going to get a 9-to-5 paycheck.
Yeah. There's comfort in knowing every 2 weeks you're going to get a paycheck and you're going to have health benefits, right? So when you switch to entrepreneurialism, it all falls on you. Now, my husband owns his own small painting company. So, I understand entrepreneurialism. In the beginning, people will say, people sell people on this dream. Oh, do this, take this course, run this ad, and you'll make 6 figures in 1 month. It doesn't work that way. You have to put in the work. And often, if Andre and I sat down, or his colleague Yolanda sat down, and we talked about the things that we did in our business, there are certain things that will work for Andre that won't work for me, and will work for Yolanda and won't work for me, right? So we have to figure out who's our audience. Who are our clients? What do they respond to? How am I reaching out to them? What value do they want? What value can I give? So I said to somebody the other day, entrepreneurialism is the most frightening and exhilarating thing at the same time. Because it's scary because you're going out on your own, but it's exhilarating because you are going out on your own and you're providing a service that no one else can provide with your beast mindset, if you will, or the way that you're coming at it. But there is a direct correlation. If you think that you could be an entrepreneur and sit and drink coffee all day and not make phone calls or reach out to people or people are not going to come to you. What happens is once you get that kind of traction, people do find you, but you have to work every day to find clients. You have to work every day to get your message out there to serve people. It doesn't just happen by osmosis. As wonderful as we all are, it just doesn't happen that way.
When you're teaching your course, book in a weekend methodology, you deal with 2 different type of women. Well, let me rephrase it. You deal with 3 type of women. You deal with the entrepreneur mindset. You deal with the corporate mindset that may be transitioning because they don't know which way they go. Usually when they come from corporate, they're either going to do one or two things. They're either going to try to start a business, or they're going to stay home and be a wife. And you got that third component, which is the woman who's at home that's trying to figure out where she fits in. How do you elevate each one of these individuals to see something different, to keep that, let me use the word again, life and harmony in check?
Yeah. It starts by meeting with them individually. Everything I do is individual. You know, when people work with me, they get me. I don't pass them on to another person. You know, I sit down and I'll say, you know, what is it that you want out of your life? You know, what do you want out of, like, if we talk about book in a weekend, like, why do you want to write this book? Let's be really clear about it. Who do you want to serve? Why do you want to serve these people? How do you want to serve them? And then we actually craft their book from that point. And the reason why it's so successful is because they're writing about something in which they're extremely passionate and they want to help people. And my methodology enables them to be in what I call flow. So they can write all day for 8 hours over Zoom, and I'm there with them and I'm giving them feedback, or, you know, I'm checking in with them. And by the end of 3 days, their manuscript is written. And we're now ready to dive deep in the editing and the proofreading and then the book planning. But they also learn in weekly courses what to do with their book. So it's not just sitting on a shelf, that it becomes your number one business asset. You know, your book becomes your business card, right? This becomes what you are known for. You know, you're known as Andre the Beast, right? That's your, I can't think of the word, but that's what you're known for, right?
That's my brand.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word brand. That's your brand, right? So my brand now is Sister Leader Movement or Sister Leader Press or helping women, you know? So it's all part of that. Like, how do you use your book to drive your brand, to get people to know who you are, to invite you to speak, to invite you to come and work with their people? For so many different reasons. I've had women, you know, the fourth group of women that you didn't mention are women who are ready for their act 2. You know, they're done. Like they're either ready to retire or they don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to, you know, they don't want to work for somebody else. Some women that come to me have retired and they're like, I'm still young. I still want to do things and I'm still passionate about this thing and I can help people. And then we are able to craft these amazing books that they are able to use, again, as a business asset. And they learn how to use it so that it's not just sitting there on a shelf somewhere.
How do you take a woman who doesn't have those skills? How do you take a woman who went from high school straight into marriage, straight into a family life, who doesn't have any what we might call life skill sets outside of the home, and convince her to that she can do this and be successful?
I think that everybody has skills that we can figure out how to. Let me backtrack. I don't know. I haven't met that woman yet. Everyone who comes to me, we've been able to.
Listening to this show, they'll come to you.
Well, then bring it on, girls, because I love the challenge. I mean, I have worked with women who people that are editing with me are like, what they gave you is really different than what they wound up with. You know, we really create a really well polished book and going back and forth by me saying, okay, think about this and think about that. And if we have to get on together, you know, I might, you know, help, you know, craft certain language. But I will say that, and I'm working with a woman right now. She's in her 30s. She's a single mom. She's an RN, but she's also going for her nurse practitioner. And she wrote a book that she didn't publish, and it was 32 pages. And it's about healing your hurt, and how if we don't heal our hurt, we're going to pass that on generationally, and how we still hold on to the hurts of our parents and all of that. So she had a really good foundation. But then when I taught her a little bit more about how to format a book and how to have flow and how to have it make sense, she said to me, this book is so much different from what I thought it was, and it is so much better than what I could have done on my own. So part of it is a skill, right? Like if you've never written a book before, you don't know how to do it. The first time I tried to write a book, it's sitting in a Google Doc somewhere because I didn't know what to do. So I had a coach for my first 2 books. And then
I asked you that. How did you learn how to do this? Because I wrote my first book was a nutrition manual. And now that, and I still have it to this day. And when I look back, I go, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to format something by, at the time that I wrote mine, I just looked at another book and just followed the format. How did you come up with your first book, and what was that like for you?
I actually, it was funny. I was on a plane heading to Jamaica, and I was sitting next to this young couple, and the woman said, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, and what do you do?" And she said, "Well, I work for a company that helps people write books." It turns out a lot of people want to write books. And this was in April. And I kept thinking about it. I'm like, I've always wanted to write a book, but I didn't have the bandwidth at the time, working full time, all the stuff. I didn't even know where to start. I had tried to write a book previously. So I signed up with this company and this coach, and I spent a lot of money with her to write my book. And I wound up staying with her for 2 years, and I did other things with her, a second book, a podcast, and business coaching and whatnot. And I've learned a lot from that. But my third book, I was challenged by one of my friends, or, someone I worked with, who said, "How fast can you write a book?" And I was like, "I could probably do it in a week." And then after that, I was like, okay, I did it fast, but I think I can do it better if I really think about it. So in November, I launched the first book in a weekend. I had a couple of what we call beta clients, your first clients, took them through my methodology. And my methodology has just gotten better and better since, because I'm focusing more on sitting at the beginning with the author and having them be super, super clear about what they're writing and who they're writing for. Earlier, you said the things that I teach in my book would help men. Absolutely, they would help men. But when you write a book, you have to be super clear on who we call your avatar or your ideal reader is, because that's who you want to pull in, because those ideal readers are the ones who eventually will become your clients. So because I love working with women, my books are framed toward women. So women see themselves. All of my examples in my book are women who've been able to do this or have been able to, have that work-life harmony. So my book speaks more to women. Yes, there are things in there. If you read it, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I really should do this. Delegation blueprint. That makes great sense. But for me, I'm talking about how it helps women more so than how it helps men. But of course, it would help anybody.
Let's go back to men for a minute.
Yeah, let's go back to men. I love men.
I'm not going to leave my men viewers out of this conversation. Men have just as many impactful stories as well. So what would be the difference with, outside of the emotional connection, you being a female, a story is a story if it's narrated and crafted with someone's expertise that knows what they're doing. So are you up for the challenge of dealing with a man, or you just are in the comfort zone and you're not ready to pivot yet? You on my show, I'm going to ask you the tough questions.
I actually, I do have male clients. One of my very good friends, his name is Sterling Gardner. He wrote a book with me in 2 days. It's called The One Slide Offer. He's into he does marketing, and I was a former client of his, and he always wanted to write a book, and he's like, well, I'm not a woman, but I'd love to. I was like, come, so I mean, my brand is more women, but what I do, I can absolutely help men. So if there are men here and you want to write a book, come, let's talk about it. I'm happy to help you.
I'm just trying to make you pivot. That's all.
I love it. But pivoting is the way of the future. Listen, I'm really just about people valuing their experience and their voice, and knowing that other people will benefit from it. One of my clients wrote a book about the death of her husband, and we turned it into a book about her journey through cancer treatments and beyond. But each chapter is lessons. Like, if you're going through this is what you need to look out for. You know what I mean? And she said to me, if it helps one person, it was worth it. And I was like, it's going to help so many more than just one person. And she did it as her healing journey. And she's already spoken to 2 groups. She met with the cancer support community in California that supported her about how to help them. And she's using the proceeds of her book as, all of her proceeds from her books are going back to the cancer support community. So everybody is motivated for a different reason to write their book. I do want to say, and this is really important, that when you write a book as a business asset, you are not making millions off of your book. you're making your money, or, you're creating your business by using it to serve people, right? So Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, like big names like that. Anybody who has a big name, yeah, they put a book out and they sell bajillions of copies, right? Because they're well known. If you have a brand that's really well known, then you probably will sell more than other people. But the magic of the way the book is written is it's written in a way that people say, wow, I could change my life from where I currently am, which is hellacious, to where this book will take me, which is more like heaven. And that's what I want. And I want to reach out to Andre to say, hey, how did you do it? Because I want what you have, and I want what you've helped these other people have as well. So it's really about, like you use the word pivot. It's like pivoting from I'm just a book writer to I'm an entrepreneur who uses her book or his book to serve people.
And I see so many. We have a lot of authors who grace my show with their books and so forth. And then when I go back and do a recap on them, they do exactly what you think. They think the book is gonna catapult them. I say, well, your book is only going to touch somebody. Only way it's going to be able to catapult is if you already have a brand prior to the book coming out. Because if not, then the book may only reach the people that's in your inner circle. So my last question before we wrap up is this: how has the day of the era of digital marketing, because a lot of people don't read, they want quick information. They want quick information. They want quick resources. And I'm not knocking writing a book. I love books. I like all the authors and publishers that we have had on our show. But at the end of the day, they want to be this overnight sensation. In a time that we live in now, even writing a book is very difficult to get that kind of recognition. What's your take on that?
I love that you asked that question. And it goes back to, like, so part of my program is weekly meetings where we talk about these things. Like, I was talking to an author yesterday who's getting ready to launch her book. And I said, Liz, you know that because you're a self-published author, the only time you're going to get book sales is when you are putting your book in front of people, when you are actively marketing your book. There'll be times when nobody buys your book, right? Even though you'll be a bestseller for the first week as a new title, but then you get in with all of the other books, right? So that's the first thing, that we support them through that for 3 months. And then there's additional support beyond that. And also, the books that we write in a weekend are really digestible. So one of the women I was talking with who just signed up with me, she bought 2 of my books, one of mine and one of my authors. And she said it was great. I was on a plane and I read the entire book. So the book is written in a way, but when you get to chapter 3, it's like, these are the things I'm going to talk about, and you can jump around. You don't necessarily have to go all through. But then in the program, we teach them how to use their book to create social media posts, to create emails to their lists, to do reels on Instagram, using it as your authentic voice moving forward with digital marketing. And I want to say one other thing, Andre, which is really important. We don't use AI. We don't use ghostwriters. That
was my next question. Do you guys do ghostwriting?
No, they do it themselves with my support. And the only AI we use is like, hey, tell me how I would organize this chapter. But the work is authentically that of the women in their voice, because that's what makes it different. You're reading a book by Donna Marie. You're experiencing Donna Marie's experience. It's not some chat GBT somewhere else, right? So people, I see people all the time, sit down, go into Canva and make an ebook. Okay, that's just another crappy resource that no one's going to read. Like, why not create something that's really valuable that's going to help people?
Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and basically talk about your journey. My last question to you is this. Somebody told you something has to change.
Yep.
You definitely did that. That came from your husband. Mm-hmm. That had to be the most powerful words that lit a fire up under your butt.
Yep.
So my question to you is, what has changed about you, and what's your purposes at this point in your life?
Thank you for answering that. And I did want to say that, when my husband said that to me, I say it was like the proverbial slap upside my head. It was like, snap out of it. I finally realized I wasn't seeing it. My purpose now is to help other women realize that we don't have to live a life that other people design for us, right? So when we just go about our way and one foot in front of the other and we drag ourselves through life, we're living what I have learned to know as we're living a life by default. We're letting things happen to us instead of making things happen for us. And I want women to know you can live a life of design that you absolutely, absolutely love. And it's not impossible because many of us are doing it. It's scary as hell at first, and you might have to ease into it. You might not just rip the Band-Aid off. You might do a side hustle and turn the side hustle into something else, but it's possible. You don't have to live a life where you're miserable because God did not put us on this life to be miserable or to be mediocre. He put us on this earth to have the best life ever. And that's what I want women to know, that they deserve it and they can have it.
How can the viewers reach out to you and support you and know more about your course? And how can they get a copy of that book as well?
Awesome. Well, I think the easiest way is for them they can hit me up on Instagram, which is my handle is Dr._DMC, or I have DMC _sister_leader_press. If they just email me and say, hey, saw you on Andre's show, would love a copy of the book, I'll send it right out to them. I'm also looking for new authors. So if anybody is thinking, hey, I would love to learn more, just let me know. And it's no pressure. You just sit together and we talk about it. And if it's a fit, it's a fit. And because they get me, 100%, I only work with anywhere from 5 to 6 authors a month. So it's a small group. Wow. We are small, but we are mighty.
I like the way that sounds. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you click that button. All it takes is a click of somebody's button or social media to make a difference in somebody's life as well as your own. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.